I don't even know where to begin actually, but you get married and you think everything is going to be wonderful, and we got married really young, and it was after maybe married 3 years that Glenn got very sick, and one illness after another. He ended up having meningitis. He was 28 when he had meningitis, and actually we had 2 children at that time, and they told me he was dying. I remember waiting at intensive care for them to come out with the news and praying. It was a series of prayers. Please don't let him die. I can't raise these 2 children alone. And the prayer kept changing. They said he wouldn't live till morning, and he did. But they came out and told me he would be brain dead. And I said, that's not the prayer that I wanted answered. I can't have a husband, that ill. It's a long story, but it's a faith journey of so many trials happening, and still digging my heels in, holding on to a God that I knew wouldn't give up on me, even though I wanted to give up. I was fearful how to go forward. And in that illness, and at that time with Glenn, after another day or 2 passed, they said he had good brain activity, but he would be blind. So it was one complication after another that turned out that he lived through. And so it was pretty amazing. Anyway, after living through all of that, and he finally came home well and normal and healthy, I got pregnant with our 3rd child, and we were ecstatic, we were joyful, grateful, prayerful, give thanksgiving, and decided if it was a boy, we would name him Glenn after Glenn. If it was a girl, we would name her Joy, in thanksgiving to the Lord for the joy he gave back to us. And so going along, thrilled about Christmas coming, and Christmas Eve morning, Glenn was violently sick again. And even prior to that, if I go step back, he had had a tumor in his head. I mean, there was a series of horrific illnesses that we had been fighting through up until that point, always coming to the point of he may not live past them. So Christmas Eve morning, excited and thrilled about Christmas. We're back in the ER with Glenn, and had to leave him there. They said they didn't know what was wrong, but he had to stay. So I went home brokenhearted. I was, I think, 7 months pregnant with 2 little kids. Julie was maybe 8, Gregory 4, I think he was 4. Pregnant with now Joy, but didn't know then. That was back in the day when you didn't know the sex of the baby. And so I was mad at God. I really was. Didn't want to go to church, was upset all day, trying to keep a good face for the kids, but brokenhearted, angry, lots of emotions, but always in conversation with God. That is a gift, I think, that the Holy Spirit gave to me, in that we never stopped communicating. And even as I work with people now in the field that I am, I encourage them, God has big shoulders, and it's okay to be angry at him. And that's what this story is about, really, my fury at him for one more time. I thought I couldn't do it. Not one more time. I cannot do this one more time. So we got through the motions of dinner and whatever, and the kids remember, even though they were little, they remembered that we did Christmas midnight mass, and they begged, we have to go, and I had no news from the hospital. For some reason, everyone must have been elsewhere, and I felt very alone that Christmas Eve. And as I recall, I believe my mom and dad called and wanted to rescue me, and I was too cranky. I said, no, we're going to stay home. I wanted to sulk in my misery. And so I was really about ready to put them to bed, and they were begging, please, let's go to Mass. And so I did very angrily. And in the whole time I remember, talking with the Lord, saying, okay, fine, I'll go, but I'm not going to pray. I'm not going to talk to you. I'll go for the kids, but don't think I'm going for you. I was furious. I really was. And so we got to church, and there's no place to park. So I just, again, in my head, my conversation was, sure, why not? Why would there be a place for me to park? So I had to park, and it's winter in Chicago, and it was below zero. Everybody's bundled, and we're freezing, and we literally had to park like 5 blocks from the church. And Gregory was a big little guy, tall for his age, and it was so ridiculous that they wanted to go because they fall asleep. But anyway, they wanted to go. And so parked 5 blocks away from church, walked in the freezing, and the whole time I'm grumbling, this is really not healthy for the baby I'm carrying, but fine. Get to church, nowhere to sit, looked all around. Finally, in one of the very last pews, we got pushed into a pew, sat down in church, and I'm still talking to the Lord, but I'm saying, don't think I'm praying, because I'm not. I have no intention of talking to you. I'm mad at you. I'm only here for the kids. And within 2 seconds, they were both asleep. And Greg's head is on my shoulder, Julie's on one shoulder, and I'm trying to figure out. The whole Mass was, how am I going to get home? I just have no idea how I'm going to, because he was big, he was lanky and long, and how am I going to carry him? And it was awful. So and I'm picturing losing the baby. I was very theatrical, assuming all the worst was going to happen, and never prayed, never enjoyed the service, just was sat in my fear, and my fear for Glenn, and fearful of what I would find out in the morning. And so I just sat, and suddenly the service was over. They were both still asleep, and I waited and didn't know what to do, and then I felt a hand on my shoulder, and turned around, kind of looked up, and a very, very tall man just said to me, "Are you in trouble? Do you need some help?" And I started to cry. I said, "Yes, I am in trouble. I can't carry my baby to the car." And I was pretty incoherent about, I mumbled, "My husband's in the hospital, and the kids are both asleep, and I don't know how, I'm 6 blocks away." And he just said, "It will all be all right." And he just came around and swooped Gregory up and carried Gregory on his chest. And I can't remember what his face looked like. I really can't. I remember thinking beautiful eyes, but I can't remember the color of his eyes. But I remember thinking, oh, I'm so grateful. And I was mumbling and crying and thanking him all at the same time. Yeah. And all he kept saying was, "It'll all be all right. It really will all be all right." And then we woke Julie up, who held kind of both of our hands, walked between us while he carried Greg. And we walked to the car pretty much in silence, except for me every now and then thanking him. He helped me bundle them, and basically walked all the way to the car. And it was a really kind of, at some point I got quiet and I relaxed. And by the time we got to the car, it was a comfortable, maybe 3 blocks of comfortable silence. And then got to the car and unlocked the car and got Julie and Greg over to me. And as I was putting them buckling up in their seatbelts, I kept thanking him. I don't know what I would have done without you. I'm so very grateful. And when I turned around to kind of shake hands or give him a hug, he was gone. And that was it. The street was completely deserted. I looked behind me, and I remember saying, you know, like, hello, where did you go?
Yeah.
And it was just crisp, cold winter night, and he was gone. So I did remember looking at the snow, and I only saw my own footsteps and Julie's footsteps. So I have no idea. I know it was an angel. I know the Lord sent protection to me in spite of my angst. And I never doubted his presence, the Lord. I doubted his wisdom over mine. And we forget that he's in charge and he'll take care of it. And I wanted it in my time, my way. And I think that's really the message. If we only could acquiesce and know that he's got it covered and he will care for you and he will nurture you and he is there for you. And in many ways, he will send an angel to you. The end of the story is, I went home that night, believe it or not, and I'm still very angry at God. I didn't even thank him for sending someone to help me get home. I was softer. I was in a softer place. I went to bed in prayer, and I remember thanking him a little bit. It's okay. I mean, this is how genuinely I hope, if anybody who watches this video gets, that you can talk to him. He's your father. And I remember saying, you know, okay, I get you help me. I get that. But I want Glenn home in the morning. I cannot do this anymore. I really can't. And I could cry even now when I think of that, because how bold I was. I feel shameful that I was that bold, that I had the nerve to the God of the universe to say, I want him home tomorrow. And you know, he did that for me. So that's the powerful end of the story, is I went to bed with that prayer. I don't know what I expected to happen, but in the morning, the kids were still sleeping, the phone rang, and it was Glenn. He said, come get me, I'm coming home. They couldn't find anything wrong. And when he went in the hospital the day before, they were talking another tumor in his head. So in 24 hours. And the first thing he said on the phone when I picked it up was, come get me, I'm coming home. Then I was on my knees. With all kinds of praise and thanksgiving that this is a God who hears prayer. And he knows when we really can't do it anymore. I think that's part of faith, too, is recognizing that we have a God who knows when we really can't do it one more minute. And that was a gift he gave us that Christmas. That was our Christmas gift.